Did you ever wonder what would have happened if Luffy was trained by these characters? Would he still become a pirate? And most importantly, would he become stronger than in the main story? For example, if Luffy was trained by Dragon, a lot of cool things would happen. Okay, for starters, I'll assume that Luffy has stayed with Dragon ever since he was born, and he has never been sent to Fuchsia Village. This would mean that he never met Garp, Ace, and Shanks, but more importantly, it also means that he never ate his devil fruit. Instead of growing up with mountain bandits, Luffy would grow up surrounded by strong Revolutionary Army members like Ivankov, Kuma, Karasu, and other commanders. Now, traveling with the Revolutionary Army is incredibly dangerous, which is why I believe that Dragon would leave Luffy at their headquarters at Baltigo. This should be a safe place for Luffy to grow up and would shelter him from the horrors of the world. While at Baltigo, Luffy would learn a lot about how the world works. He would understand that the world government is evil and would overall be much more knowledgeable than in the original story. Also, it's likely that Dragon would appoint someone to train Luffy, most likely Hack, as he is the guy who trains new recruits. Luffy's fighting style would revolve around using Kenpo, or Fishman karate techniques, as that's pretty much a standard for Revolutionary Army members. Despite all the changes compared to the original story, I still believe Luffy would develop the same kind of personality. He would be stubborn, hot-headed, and eager to prove himself. He would be mad at Dragon for not letting him join him on any missions, and would likely try to escape from Baltigo in order to start his own adventure. Of course, these escape attempts would quickly be stopped by other members who would try to explain to Luffy that he isn't ready yet. It wouldn't be long until Dragon finds Sabo and brings him to the island as well. Luffy and he would quickly become really good friends and would even start training together. After a few years, both Luffy and Sabo would learn Haki and become incredibly strong fighters. Since Luffy is Dragon's son, he will develop Conqueror's Haki as well, which would shock his fellow revolutionaries. After seeing a strong outburst of Conqueror's Haki from Luffy, Dragon would realize that it's finally time he starts giving him more responsibilities and sending him on missions. These missions will give Luffy opportunities to grow as a combatant and tactician. After clashing enough times with the forces of the Marines and the world government, he'll start quickly climbing up the ranks and his strength will grow dramatically. This is why I believe that in this version of the story, Luffy would get promoted to the Chief of Staff, while Sabo would be his right-hand man. This would mean that Luffy would start spending more time with his dad and maybe even going on some missions with him, which would be so cool to see! Eventually, after some time, Blackbeard will start his raid on Revolutionary HQ, same as he did in the original story. So, can Luffy do anything to stop it this time around? You see, it'd be really hard to calculate how strong Luffy would be in this version of the story. However, considering how formidable Sabo was even without Ace's fruit, we can assume he'd be at least strong enough to take on Emperor commanders. This means that Luffy would make a big change on the battlefield, as someone like Jesus Burgess or Von Augur should pose no problem to him. But even with Luffy there, once Blackbeard arrives himself, the Revolutionary Army would stand no chance and would have to retreat. However, soon after that, the biggest challenge so far awaits Luffy: the raid on Marioa. During the raid, Luffy and Sabo would work as a team, and after a brief clash with the admirals, they would successfully infiltrate the castle. It's here that both of them would see Imu, the ruler of the world, for the first time. Now, although it would be absolutely epic to see a battle between Imu and Luffy here, that's completely unrealistic, and it's much more likely that both of them would run for their lives. In the time that follows, Luffy would continue going on missions and battling against both Marines and Cypher Pole agents. It's possible that he would even stumble upon God Knights at some point, but without his Nika powers, it's very unlikely he would be able to match them. So although Luffy would be pretty strong if he was trained by Dragon and would help countless people, he would simply never reach his full potential. Okay, Dragon clearly didn't make Luffy stronger than he is in the main story, but would training under Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world, be any different? In this version, I'll assume that both Ace and Luffy started their pirate journey at the same time, when Ace turned 17. After leaving Fuchsia Village with Ace and becoming one of the first members of the Spade Pirates, Luffy would quickly realize just how dangerous other pirates are once Ace challenges Whitebeard to a battle. After a brutal defeat, both Ace and Luffy would become a part of Whitebeard's crew. At first, Luffy would be furious over this, but he would quickly realize that Whitebeard and his crew aren't the bad guys. During the next couple of months, Luffy would develop friendships with many characters on the ship and would ask Whitebeard to train him in order to get stronger. Although Whitebeard would refuse at first as he has more important things to do, he would see something in Luffy and eventually agree to show the boy a couple of things. With Whitebeard, this version of Luffy has a high chance of realizing his actual potential, since he can spar with a wide range of very strong characters, like Marco or Vista. Also, with so many Devil Fruit users to interact with, Luffy will learn to bring out the true potential of his fruit. To be honest, I can easily see Luffy developing both Haki and his gears 2 through 4 pretty quickly, making him much stronger than he was in the original story by this time. Same as in the canon version, Blackbeard would soon betray the crew and murder Thatch, which would prompt Ace to go and look for him. However, this time, Luffy would volunteer to accompany Ace and help him catch the traitor. So, can the two brothers together actually catch this guy? Well, although Ace's fight against Blackbeard was pretty close, one important thing to remember is that Blackbeard's crew didn't participate at all